Hi everyone, welcome to the live stream. Let me know who is joining us tonight, where you're joining us from, what you do for a living. All those things help me understand who it is that joined this live stream tonight, who is in the audience. To be completely honest, the live streams like this, where I'm the only person in the studio and not really talking to somebody, are quite difficult for me to do when there is no interaction with the audience. So I would really appreciate it if you just let me know if you're watching this live, if you would start leaving comments or questions or emojis or really anything to just help me see that there is somebody on the other side of the screen. If you have done live streams like this or webinars, you know what I mean. So I will appreciate your support if you find this kind of content valuable. So yeah, I'm seeing some people saying hi in chat. Hi. I see people joining in both from LinkedIn and from YouTube. Let me know how you can hear me, if you can hear me okay, if you can see me fine, if everything is working. Really nice to see more people join. Thanks. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. So yeah, let me know where you're joining us from, whether you're based in the UK. I realized only late that this is actually a bank holiday in the UK, so I'm not sure how many people will join from the UK. And where you're from originally, where you're based right now, and what you do for a living. So I will start with some intros now. Okay, so yeah. Hello, everybody. And yeah, everybody can hear me. So that's great. Cool. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, so I see people joining in from Nigeria. From Nigeria again. Who else? For context, I'm based in London. Okay, so we have people from South Africa, from Malta. Amazing. Cybersecurity analyst from Nigeria. Hello from Nigeria again. India, more people from India. Amazing. Canada. Okay, so quite a range of time zones, probably. UK software developer. Cool. I have a background in software engineering as well. And then would be here looking forward to what you have to share. Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. United Arab Emirates. Cloud engineer. So I'm guessing a lot of people with technical backgrounds. Maybe more people with business backgrounds. Let me know if your field is in tech, but more business focused. From UK. Cool. Yeah, amazing. Let me start sharing my slides so that we can get started. But please, if you join and keep the conversation going, you can ask questions during my presentation, but I will get to them most likely towards the end. So it's not to break the flow of my presentation. So I do appreciate your patience in waiting for the answers. If something is very short and also it is within the context of what I'm saying, I think I will try to answer it immediately, probably, but no promises. But yeah, I think questions make this interesting. If you have questions related to the global talent visa, make sure you ask them. Ideally, they should not be very specific to your case, because I'm not always able to advise you on the specifics of your particular case. So yeah, let's start this. Cool. Yeah. So the topic of today is UK global talent visa, why you will get rejected. So this is obviously a bit tongue-in-cheek, and hopefully you won't get rejected. But the statistics that I saw at some point, and I'm not sure how up-to-date this is, but that around half of people who apply, they get rejected. And I'm not sure how up-to-date this is and also how exactly this was calculated, but I only mention this to just clarify that getting rejected for the global talent visa is quite common. It's much more common than you would think, because we hear a lot of successful stories, right? On my channel, I interviewed, I think it's around 50 at this point, people who have successfully been endorsed. And it's easy to get this idea that everybody's getting endorsed, but the reality is that a lot of people are getting rejected. A lot of people are getting rejected on their first attempt, right? And then they reapply, and then they get endorsed, which I think is quite common, and also why live streams like this are important, why I share a lot of information about dealing with rejections, about writing an appeal, and all of that stuff. But hopefully this stream today will help you avoid some of the rejection reasons and just increase your chances of getting endorsed from the first attempt. And I see more people coming into the chat, people from PM based in Georgia, people from UK, product manager, business and tech. So that's amazing. I've like the content that I will be giving is relevant for anybody applying for the global talent visa under the digital technology route. So if you're applying for a technician endorsement, so if you work in tech, this will be relevant to you, right? It doesn't matter if you're a coder, if you're a PM, if you're a sales professional, it doesn't really matter. The rules and the rejection reasons, I think, are quite common. So I know that a lot of new people joined today, which is very cool. So if you are watching this on LinkedIn, you can probably add me or follow me there. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe so that we can stay connected for the future. So for people who are new, obviously my name is Nadia. I'm originally from Belarus, but I have moved around quite a lot. So I've lived in Bulgaria, Israel, Poland, and now I'm based in London, the UK. So I do a lot of things, and I've done a lot of things. And as I like to say, I have done a lot of iterations in my professional career. So currently, most relevant for this conversation is that I'm a UK Global Talent Visa Coach, which means that kind of means two things here. So first, it means that I'm helping talented IT professionals get endorsed for this visa. So I only help with stage one of the application process, which is the endorsement stage, right? But also, I am a recipient of the Global Talent Visa myself. I got endorsed for this visa in 2022 as a software engineer. My story here is that I prepared all the documents on my own. I did all the research. It took me months, and it was much longer than I would have preferred. But yeah, I made the decision to apply on my own for various reasons. I would say that with the benefit of hindsight, I would probably work with an individual coach, at least getting some sort of consultation, because this would have saved me a lot of time. But anyway, I did it on my own. And then after I got endorsed, I realized that I want to share this information with other people. And I started sharing it in the form of YouTube videos and also on my LinkedIn, where I've just shared a lot of articles, videos, and a lot of interviews with successful applicants, so that you can take this information and apply for this visa on your own. Or if you choose to work with me, obviously the videos like this and this webinar, they serve as a way for you to get to know me, to ask me questions, to see what I know, like what my expertise is, and to just make a decision whether you like me, whether you want to work with me. So that's the context of my current occupation that is most relevant. But also I am a startup founder currently. I used to be a journalist, a translator. I worked as a software engineer at companies such as Zendesk and Intercom. Also, I was a DevRel at Intercom. I was a career coach at some point as well, and I'm also a published book author. So as you can imagine, this combination of skills makes me well positioned to help people with the global talent visa endorsement process, because on the one hand, I have the editorial experience and I know how to tell a good story. I know how to present myself, or yourself if you're working with me. Also, I understand personal branding, marketing, and all of that stuff. But at the same time, I have experience writing code. So I worked as a full stack engineer, and this experience helps me understand what software engineers are talking about. And I'm able to translate technical information into a format that technician assessor will love. So why I'm telling you this, just mostly to give you some sort of background on who I am, why I do what I do, and like what is my expertise and what is my experience in this. So I have been a global talent visa coach for software engineers designers, product managers, heads of business departments. There are also sales professionals, data analysts, QA engineers, founders, etc. I'm pretty sure there were some other specialties in the mix, but these are, I think, some of the key ones. If your specialty is not really in this list, it's not really a problem, because this list is not exhaustive. And as you will probably learn today, a lot of the things that apply to one specialty, they will also apply to another one. So if somebody helped a software engineer get endorsed, they will likely be able to help a business applicant get endorsed as well. The documents are quite similar in the sense that they are kind of the same expectations from the documents, although of course the details of them might be different. So yeah, this is my background. This is me. Curious to hear more introductions from you. Also, if you have questions about any of this, ask me about my services, about what I do. I will talk about it later towards the end, but also I don't want to make this like a sales webinar. This is mostly just useful information for you, but I do find it's useful to get an understanding of who is the person who's presenting something. Okay, so let me check the chat quickly and just catch a breath. Okay, so we have product manager, business and tech. We have business and sustainability background from India. We have a software engineer. We have somebody from Bangladesh. And we have a senior product manager from Iran. Okay, so here for questions, as I said in the beginning, you can ask them as we go so that they're in chat and others can see what has been asked. But then I will answer them most likely towards the end to not lose the kind of discussion points that I'm doing here. And then there was a product designer from Nigeria. Amazing, amazing. Really glad to see such a diversity of people, in terms of backgrounds and in terms of countries as well. So yeah, if you want to stay in touch, I have a website, beetlehub.com. You can subscribe there for the updates on the visa. So if the rules change or things like that, I post updates there. This is an email update, obviously, so you will not miss it, right? Unlike other channels. And yeah, also on this website, you can see my services. You can see testimonials of my clients. You can see the tutorial that I've made about the visa and also read more about me if you're interested. And yeah, question to the audience. I have an understanding of who is joining today, who is watching this. Let me know if you're planning to apply for the UK Global Talent Visa this year. What is your plan in terms of the visa, right? So we'll be talking about the rejection reasons. And I'm curious to learn what is your interest in this visa at all. Whether you are interested in applying later at some point this year, or, what is your timeline in terms of the visa? Okay, so that's a no. It's another no. Okay, is anybody applying soon? Okay, later next year. I think that's fine. Obviously, it's impossible for me to say what the rules, or the rejection reasons will be next year, but I think the general gist and the general principles of what I will be saying, they will still apply. I always try to do the webinars as make them as generic as possible so that everybody can benefit. Okay, more answers. Okay, so I'm interested to apply within the next few months. Great. I'm interested in applying this year. Oh wow, how many comments? Okay, got rejected, planning to reply soon. Good. December. Cool. Getting started on researching the process in the next few weeks. So that's great that you joined this webinar. I do suggest you subscribe to or at least check out my YouTube channel, where there is a very detailed explainer on the basics, or check out my website. So then, okay, yes. I tried to get the Global Talent Visa exceptional since January of this year, and I hope I can start the endorsement in September. Does it mean that you have applied, or are you just working on your documents? So what is your, can you clarify the process? Okay, this year, next month, I'm planning to apply in the coming 1-2 years, but I want to start my prep now, as it obviously takes time. That's actually a very good approach, Polina. I would say that one of the biggest regrets that people have for this visa is that they don't start preparing early enough, right? And then once they have to apply, they don't have enough documents, or they don't like their documents. And very often people say to me, I wish I had 6 months or a year to do this, then I would have, gotten more media attention or something like this, or like build up my public profile. And unfortunately, sometimes people don't have the time. So I think it's really smart for you to start doing this early. Okay, research stage, also really good that you joined. Planning to apply next month, and also research stage. Great, thank you so much for sharing this. It helps me to understand where people are. So we had somebody who got rejected, and then I think a lot of people applying very soon, which I think this is super relevant for all of you, but also for people who are planning to apply in the future. It will still be relevant. And I will also try to share some more generic information about the visa here. But of course, this webinar is not just like an intro to the visa, right? It's more focused on the rejection reasons. I do have on my YouTube channel, I have a separate webinar actually about the visa and like the foundational information about it. I will share this on the chat so that you can follow. So this is my YouTube channel, right? It's at Beetlehope, where I have 2 webinars actually about this visa. They're also like 2 hours, so you can watch them. They were done in, I think, January, March this year. They're still largely up to date. Some things may be changed, but mostly they're still relevant. Okay, so there was something else. I got a final opinion from a lawyer who specializes in UK immigration in the next few days. Okay, thanks for clarifying. I'm using this year to gather documents. It's also great. I already got 10 evidences, 3 letters of recommendation, CV, and 2 awards. That's good. Yeah, so you're applying for the Art Council route. So for Art Council route, the rules are different, the rejection reasons are different, but I still think that some of this will be relevant to you, Cynthia, but I don't think that maybe all of it will be. Just bear in mind that Technician and Art Council are different things. Okay, so keep the responses coming, but I will move on. So yeah, this is common rejection reasons. What is this based on, right? So where am I coming, like what am I basing this presentation on? So there are a couple of different sources, right? In my practice as a coach, I pride myself on having 100% approval endorsement rate with my premium coaching services, which is my most like white glove service where I intensely coach people through the process. However, I also provide more lightweight options of coaching where, for instance, I provide, initial consultation or help with the strategy, like understanding which documents they should use, like which criteria they should choose to apply. Also, I help sometimes with the reviews, right? Or sometimes people come to me and they have been already rejected, they want to reapply. And through this kind of interactions with a lot of different people, I get to see some rejections. It's still a very low percentage, but they happen, unfortunately. Sometimes we're able to appeal and overturn the decision, sometimes not. But to be honest, I don't see that many rejections kind of from my own practice. Most of this is based on the rejections that I see elsewhere. So the sources are a couple. So first of all, there are some Telegram chats where people share their rejection stories and their rejection reasons. There are also the Technician Visa Forum, Visa Alumni Forum, which you can check out. There also, if you search for the word rejection, you can see a lot of rejection reasons. And also, a lot of people come to me after they got rejected when they applied either on their own or they applied through an agency or a lawyer, right? they get rejected, they show me their rejection reasons, and we try to work with them, right? So sometimes I help with appeals, where I either help write the appeal, or sometimes I just say that an appeal won't change anything, so it's best to just apply with a new application, right? So this is kind of the context of it, and I've tried to gather the most common reasons for rejection so that you can learn from them and apply them to your own case. Hopefully this makes sense. If you have any questions, let me know. Okay, so there was one comment: I want to prepare, but I don't know which documents are needed and how to apply. So yeah, for you, I would recommend you check out my YouTube channel. I see that you're watching this on LinkedIn, right? So go to YouTube, type in Beetle Hope or my name. I have a lot of foundational, like basic explainers on this, where you can learn like which documents you need, how to apply, and all of this stuff. I won't cover such basics in this tutorial, in this webinar, sorry. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to say with rejections is this eternal product-led versus consultancy debate, sort of. So if you read the technician guide, you will see that people who work in outsourced companies are not eligible for the visa, right? And my thinking on this changed in the year that I have been coaching people. I have learned more about it, and I've seen people actually get endorsed, and I've heard stories of people get endorsed even though they had consultancy experience, right? So I've also talked to some other people who help with the technician endorsements, and they've also shared this idea that it's not black and white with the consultancies, right? So there is this myth that if you have consultancy experience, like you can never get this visa. It's not really true, right? However, if we look at the rejections that technician gives to people who only have consultancy experience, so for instance, somebody only worked in outsourced companies or consultancies, and they get rejected. So what technician would say in the rejection reasons, and also for context, for those who are new to this process, if you apply for the visa, for the endorsement, you get rejected, you will get back a form or a letter that will tell you why exactly you got rejected, right? So you will get very detailed feedback on what went wrong in your application. So in regards to consultancies, what often happens is that technician will say that work in consultancies isn't eligible unless the person worked in very small boutique agencies, like design agencies, for instance, or web studios focused on a very narrow niche, and this person has very unique and rare skills that aren't easily found on the open market, right? So these are the cases that you would hear about. So somebody, a designer working in a web design studio that is very prestigious, working with product companies, also like having a real impact on the product, working with them for a longer period of time, and receiving recognition, especially in media, or receiving awards for work like this, right? So these are the cases that I've heard. For the consultancy work, you need to be careful with the third criteria especially. So the third criteria, and again, I'm referring to Technician Visa Guide, which is the single source of truth for this visa. So the third criteria is all about product-led companies. Here, you want to be as safe as possible, right? So if you submit 3 documents for the third criteria, I would usually recommend my clients to have 2 documents that are safe, that are from 100% clearly cut product companies. And then you can submit also the third document, for instance, where you might not have like 100% confidence that this will be accepted. But you want to make sure that you show your impact on the product. You want to show that you have been working on this product for significant lengths of time. You want to have really strong letters about your impact on this product work, your impact on business metrics for the third criteria, and really make sure that it looks sort of respectable, right? So you don't have a situation where, which I have seen a couple of times, where somebody works in a consultancy and they are thrown kind of from project to project every 3 months, which is actually quite common in consultancies, but then if you use this experience for your application, it will be very obvious to technician that this is a consultancy experience. And also it's very hard to have an impact on the direction of the product within the 3 months, right? So you gotta work a very careful line here, which experience you use, which experience you don't use, right? So it's a very long topic, obviously, and I try to never answer questions related to this and some other topics within this visa in comments. Like in general, I try to not answer specific questions related to someone's career or like someone's experience, because it's very easy to give really misguided advice based on just a comment or a question in chat, right? So for instance, if somebody says, oh, I worked in a consultancy, can I apply? The answer is, it depends really, right? So the answer here is that I can look at your profile, at your holistic profile, at your whole CV, at your whole experience within a consultation that we can have one-on-one. And we can discuss it. We can see what can be used, what can't be used. Maybe there is some product experience that can be better used. Like, it kind of depends on which criteria you end up choosing. But the point of this slide is just to make you aware of the fact that consultancy work is more challenging to present than product work, right? So if, and this is kind of the first thing that I examine usually with my clients. So if somebody comes to me, the first thing that I look at is their LinkedIn or their CV. I look at the companies where they worked for the last 5 years, within the last 5 years. And if they have product experience, then it's like check mark, right? So meaning that presenting this experience is going to be much easier. It doesn't mean that you can get the visa if you work in a product company, obviously, but at least it's like one less hurdle that you need to jump through, right? So yeah, this is kind of the summary on consultancies. I realize that it's complicated, but also it doesn't just seem complicated. It is quite complicated because if you think about it, Technician Guide clearly says that if you work in a consultancy, you can't get the visa. But then you would hear of people getting the visa with consultancy experience, which kind of makes you wonder, how is this possible, right? So it just means that those cases, they require more work and more careful planning on your part. So especially if you apply alone, you need to be aware of the risks with consultancies. Okay, so the next one, if you have questions, drop them in the comments. As I said, continue asking them. I will get to them in a bit. So yeah, the next one is templating in documents. So what it means is that if technician thinks that the documents that you have are not authentic, that they have been copy-pasted from some other place, or they have been copy-pasted between each other, right? Then they might reject your application. So the common rejection reasons that I see on forums is that the letters of recommendation, they have the same format, for instance, right? If you think about it, it would be quite odd for 3 separate experts to write 3 letters that look the same, right? That have the same bullet points, that have the same font, or especially if they talk about the exact same things. I think that's quite obvious, but still, you would see rejections like this. Making sure that this doesn't happen, kind of, I think recently Technician has become quite strict about this, and I do encourage you to ensure that your documents are authentic, that they are written either by you or your experts, depending on what the document is, that you don't use somebody else's letters or somebody else's documents. You can use some documents or some samples as an inspiration, right? You can look at such resources. They're free and they're also paid, and just get encouraged or inspired by them, but don't ever copy paste stuff, and don't lift stuff off, from other people. And also be careful with the documents that you prepare yourself as well. Using ChatGPT, I think, is not really about templating. It's just like, first of all, it's cringe. Like, the results that most people get with ChatGPT are cringy. Second of all, it's now forbidden by Technation, because my guess is that a lot of people got very happy with when ChatGPT appeared, and Technation probably got a lot of really really weird and cheery letters without substance. So now it's explicitly forbidden, but I still think people use ChatGPT a lot for like just writing like all of their documents. Just don't do it. I think authentic writing, it has a value. Like, even if you don't get caught, right? It's still not worth doing it, to me. It doesn't mean, like, I think sometimes people do it because they don't want to spend time on the documents. It's fair, but you really don't want to do this because, like, there are no reasons to do it, right? So don't also do it because you think that your English has to be perfect in the letters. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be legible, right? You don't have to have amazing, like, flowery language in the documents or the letters. They can just be very simple sentences, short sentences, talking about you and your achievements. They can have grammar mistakes. It's fine. They have to be clean and legible, but they don't have to be perfect. So no reason to do this as well. I think authentic documents, authentic letters, and just authentic evidences, they are very valuable. The more people apply, the higher the rejections rates are. And the value of authentic writing gets higher and higher. One thing that I didn't really mention in the beginning, which I'm now thinking that I should have, is that I'm seeing a lot more rejections recently for the global talent visa on forums and chats. And I also talked to a couple of global talent visa coaches in the industry, so people like me who are helping others get endorsed. And this is the feeling that people share. It has become harder to get this visa. More people get rejected. So people who would have been able to get the visa last year, they are getting rejected now, which is clearly quite sad, but that's what happens. So to me, I see it as an opportunity to this webinar is an opportunity to share this with you, so that you can take it and improve your chances, not make the same mistakes that a lot of people are making, and just kind of put your best foot forward, right? Nobody can guarantee you that you get endorsed, right? No coach or lawyer. The decision is with Technation ultimately, and no matter how hard you try, you might still get rejected because you don't have enough of something for your application to be endorsed. However, I feel like if you avoid the basic mistakes and if your documents are clean, legible, properly presented, and like you can see that you actually put in some effort into it, I think it really makes a difference for your chances. I'm a strong believer in this. I think that if you spend time, if you spend enough effort into making sure the documents are well prepared, but also like well suited for the criteria, the chances of you getting endorsed are much higher, right? And then even if you get rejected and you want to appeal, it's much easier for you to appeal, because sometimes people come to me, they show me their documents and their rejection and ask me to help them appeal, and I'm just like, there is no way. Like, I can't do anything with this because the documents themselves, like initially they were so poorly prepared that there is nothing that can be done, because what Technician said in their rejection, it seems unfair and harsh, but it's mostly true, right? So if you've made a lot of errors in your applications, if there are like, serious errors, then you will just get rejected, and it's very hard to appeal and recover from this. You can reapply with a new application, which is great that you kind of get second or third chance or fourth, whatever. It kind of depends on how many times you want to apply, how much money you want to pay. But yeah, I think the preparation is really, really important. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Continue dropping your questions while I take a moment. Okay, so this slide is about first criteria. So Technician Guide lists all the criteria that you can choose to meet when it comes to optional criteria, right? So it's the first, the second, the third, and the fourth. So this is the first. This one is about innovation. So this criteria is about showing that you have a clear track record of innovation. Or if you're applying for Promise, which is this route for people who are early on in their career, that you have at least one innovation that you have done in a product-led company. So this criteria is very weird. It's notorious for being impossible to meet. So people say that you can't meet it if you're not the founder, or that nobody can meet it unless they are an inventor or they have a patent. I think this is a common one that is thrown around, like without a patent, you should not apply. There is no chance, and it's a waste of time. Just tell it to a lot of my clients who got the first criteria endorsed, and they have none of them have had any patents. So it's clearly possible to get this criteria if you are an employee. And also, by the way, all of them who got endorsed, they were employees. They weren't they weren't founders of innovative startups, right? So again, on my YouTube channel at Hope, or you can search for my name, you can find, if you look for the word innovation, you can find examples of my clients talking about how they met innovation. And I think those videos will provide you more context, because then it will be real people who got the visa talking about how they proved this criteria, right? And not just me talking about it. But basically, if you want to meet this criteria and you don't have a patent, which is like most of us don't, you have to explain really clearly why the thing that you worked on was an innovation. It has to be on a couple of levels. So first of all, you have to explain why the product was innovative, and then why your contributions were innovative. Like, what was your contribution to the innovation? And you can do it through a variety of ways. So you can have like self-written explanations with diagrams, screenshots, code snippets. And then you can have letters or reference letters from experts explaining why the specific thing was an innovation. This is usually not enough. So especially these days, you have to provide something else. Usually we look for external proof of innovation. So we try to find publications, we try to find media mentions of somebody explaining why this company was an innovation, or why your work was innovative. Like ideally, your name should be there, but I've seen people being successful without their name there. And with this criteria, you have to be really, really creative. So you have to look everywhere to find any kind of, it's kind of like just collecting, anything that you can get your hands on to prove innovation. So people use a variety of evidences. So they use proof that their startup was part of an accelerator that is famous for innovation, or their startup maybe received a grant for innovation. Maybe it received R&D breaks that are only awarded to innovative startups. Sometimes people would find screenshots, or basically screenshots and links to publications where their startup or their product is mentioned as something that is like first of its kind, or something that will revolutionize an industry, right? Things like that. So you have to be super creative with this. And within my coaching sessions, we usually do a brainstorm of whether this person has enough for innovation, or they would be better off with the second criteria, with another criteria, right? However, in some cases, if you don't have enough outside work, which is necessary for the second criteria, and you don't have academic achievements, which is the fourth criteria, then you're left with the first criteria, basically, right? So if you're stuck with it, more or less, right? So this is where you need to do a really proper brainstorm of looking at your whole experience within the last 5 years, because the visa is focused on the last 5 years, and see what can be used there that can be described as an innovation, what is strong, what is weak. And here, nobody can guarantee that you will get endorsed. Of course, you can get rejected for innovation, just like for any other criteria. But in my experience, people who have chosen innovation, they have been endorsed. I think the secret there was spending a lot of time. We spent a lot of time on explaining innovation in really obvious terms so that everybody would be able to understand why this is innovation, right? So the mistake here, the mistake that is made here is that people would just take something that they have done, right? So for instance, I don't know, any kind of project, basically. So they take a project, they talk about it, they say that, they made a lot of money for the company and they submit it for innovation. And then technician says, there is no innovation here. It's just a project that made money, right? You don't have to be innovative to make money for a company. So, and then the person says to me, but this is clearly like an innovative project. It's, I don't know, Web3 project. And I'm like, but you don't explain it, right? So how can an assessor know this? How can they see that this project was an innovation? You should always think about what you are writing and what is the target audience, like who is this person reading this? You should think about the user experience of somebody reading your application. You should not expect them to understand that this particular feature was an innovation, that like this thing was super new for the industry. They don't know this, and you should not expect them to know this. It's kind of up to you, right? It's on you to explain why this is an innovation. And I don't know how many times I've said innovation today, but innovation is something that technician doesn't define, right? It's just something new, something novel. It's a new way to create a product or to do something, right? So it is up to you to understand whether the thing that you have done, that it was a new thing for the market, for the world, for your country, and explain what your impact was, what your contribution was. And you need to find somebody, an expert, who will have authority to talk about it, right? You can't just get like a random person to say, oh, this is a new thing. No, you have to find somebody who has some sort of authority to say this. So a good example that comes to mind is that, I had a client who used an example of an innovative algorithm that they use, right? So to prove that this was an innovative way to use an algorithm, basically, they got a letter from somebody who had authority in computer science, right? And then it was logical that this person talked about an algorithm being an innovation. And you should always keep this in mind, if you are looking for people to talk about some things, like if you are trying to prove innovation, look for people who understand this industry deeply. Look for people who have done innovative work themselves. Look for people who maybe won some awards for being innovators. And then they should talk about this thing being an innovation, not you, right? And it always should be somebody talking about you, not the other way around, right? Not the other way around, but not you talking about yourself. So I hope this is clear. I know this is complicated, but please let me know what you think about this criteria, whether this made sense, whether you think you have any innovative contributions in your career, whether you think you will go for this criteria at all, or if you are thinking about criteria, which ones are you thinking about choosing? Okay, so in the meantime, there's a question. Can you check my resume and give me some advice, and do you consult for imagination with UK Global Talent Visa? This is a great question, and I don't really understand it. So yeah, I can check your resume for for eligibility for the Global Talent Visa. If you message me on LinkedIn, I think that might be the easiest way. There will also be my email towards the end. We can set up a discovery session where we will talk about your eligibility, and I can give you some advice. I have no idea what it means to be consulting for imagination, so you can clarify that. But yeah, definitely, and this applies to everybody. If you need help understanding whether you can get the visa, you can reach out to me, and I'll be happy to help. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so the next one is for mandatory criteria, which is the leadership criteria. So this is the first one that you have to fulfill. You can't avoid it, basically, right? So for mandatory criteria, if you look at technician guide, you will see some documents that you can use, and they include a lot of things, but one of them is letters of recommendation, and then there's also the high salary. I think my next slide is about salary. So first of all, like, be very cautious about salary. I see a lot of people saying that, oh, this visa is so easy to get. You just submit your pay slip and you get the visa. That's not true at all. I don't know how this myth started. I guess because in the past it was much easier to get the visa in some respects, and people were applying with their salaries, and it kind of got popular as a way to prove leadership. Like, I use salary in my application back when I was applying, but honestly, right now I wouldn't be using it. And while talking to my clients, we also analyze their salary. And just let me be honest, unless somebody is making kind of Facebook, Meta, Google level salary, or something higher, or something similar, I see no point at this point in time in using this document at all. So I have seen so many rejections on forums and like everywhere, and that mention the salary document. Obviously, you won't get rejected just because your salary is not amazing, right? So what I mean to say is that if in general your mandatory criteria is weak and you don't have anything substantial there, and you just submit your salary and your salary is like average, right? Then it won't do much for your application. You will likely get rejected, and then in your rejection, you will be told that you aren't paid that well, which I think is quite a sad thing to hear on top of being rejected, right? So I think you need to be realistic here. Like, they are not just looking for people who are paid, right? It's not a visa about being paid or having a job. We have the skilled worker visa for people who are paid to do a specific job. You should be aware that this visa is for people who are going above and beyond in the digital technology industry to achieve something that is not typical, that is above average. And your salary, it should be exceptional. At this point, it can't just be above average, right? So I know that people submit and send their salaries, and I know that a lot of people in the space who are helping others get endorsed, like agencies and whatever, would still use salaries. For me, my personal understanding is that unless you are exceptionally well paid, there's no point in doing it at all. So you won't prove leadership with this. You won't do anything with this. Like, if you have space, yes, go ahead and you submit it. But if you have something else that is better than salary, then use that. It will do you much more good, and it will show your leadership, hopefully, if you have some good documents there. So also sometimes people try to be really creative with their salaries, and they would, I don't know, they would have some salary, in London, and then they would compare it with, they would be like senior engineer in London. They would compare it with like medium level engineer across the UK. Compare apples with apples, okay? Like, the UK is very, very unequal in terms of salaries. Like, you can't compare London with the rest of the UK. It's a bit ridiculous, and people assessing applications, they have an idea of how much people are making, so you can't really trick them. So unless your salary is at the level of funk, I would say that honestly, I don't see any point. You have to find some better documents for mandatory. This is where I would say probably this is the biggest rejection reason, or like the hardest rejection reason to do anything about. Because if you don't have anything for mandatory, like, you can't make this up, right? You can't just write a letter about something that doesn't exist or something like this. You have to have external evidences, some external verification of you being a leader in tech for mandatory. At this point, if somebody comes to me for a discovery session, and I mentioned my discovery sessions, they are just, a session where we go through your experience, we look at the criteria, and we try to do like a quick brainstorm of which criteria you can meet. If somebody comes to me and they don't have any achievements outside of work, They don't have any publications. They don't have any media mentions, interviews, awards, hackathons, like being included in some rating. Like doesn't matter like how impressive this is, but something about them online that I can see being mentioned. Like wherever, wherever, right? Being interviewed at least like on some YouTube channel or a podcast or like something. I would say that at this point, I would say that unless you have amazing achievements with your startup, that maybe there are publications about your startup, right? We can use, or you are like all in stealth mode or whatever, like a very introverted person, and you don't post anything online. There is nothing about you online, but you have a company or an invention or something where it's so impressive that it's hard to ignore. Then I think there is like a good chance that something can be done and like some story can be presented. But if you're an employee, if you don't have any like significant achievements outside of work, if you don't have any kind of personal brand, it would be very hard for you to meet mandatory. Just be aware of it. I know it's an unpopular opinion, and I realize people will be unhappy about it. But in my case, a lot of discovery calls that I make with people, they end with me saying that I'm sorry, but you can't, like, the chances of you get endorsed right now are very, very slow, very small with this, what you have. You need to work on your public profile. You need to become a leader or an emerging leader. And in this case, it's, the quickest thing would be to become a thought leader, right? So somebody who shares their expertise in various formats and people follow you. If you have this, I think this can be kind of a foundation for the visa. But if you don't have anything outside of just working a normal job and like fulfilling your tasks at your job, I think that making this happen would be quite difficult. So I always tell my clients that you can go ahead and apply, but I myself would not be taking on such a case, especially in case of a premium coaching, just because I think that the chances of rejection are too high for me to take this on, to take on this responsibility. And my goal as a coach is to be as honest as I can. I don't have the goal of getting as many leads or like people in my pipeline as possible. That's not my business model. So yeah, like I wish it wasn't like this, but that's reality, right? So mandatory criteria has become just so hard to meet. I'm really kind of, I often tell people now that, I wish like you came or like you started doing this earlier, because it's now so much harder. And this is not to discourage people who are planning to apply, next year. I think you have a lot of time to prepare and to increase your chances to work on your profile. But for people who are applying very soon, this is something to keep in mind, to really do a proper search online to see if there are any mentions of you or your company, if you're a founder, or anything that you can use as proof of leadership, right? Just having letters is not enough at this point. There are exceptions, of course, like there are exceptions to everything. If you can get a letter from, I don't know, like some big celebrity saying that, you are actually like the leader in something, but that you are like under such strict NDAs that nobody can hear about it or something like this, then I think you could have a chance. But in the vast majority of cases, it's not, it's not what it is. It's just that you haven't worked on your profile, you haven't built that expertise or that brand, and that's what it is. Okay, I think this is a good topic and an interesting one. So leave a comment and tell me what you think about mandatory criteria in general. And I'll take a sip of my tea now. Okay, let me actually answer some questions while I wait for your thoughts on mandatory, on salary. What you think? I'm sure it's a controversial one. Okay. What is relevant here? Okay, so how do I handle a situation where I work 2 jobs? Is it okay to put both in an application? Um, I would need more information to answer this. So if you can provide me with more information, then maybe I can share something on this. As a product manager, should I have a job offer for this kind of visa? No, you don't need a job offer. This is the kind of visa that you sponsor for yourself. And that's the benefit of the visa, basically. So this one, what about working in non-tech companies? Most of your clients are from tech companies. Can you clarify where you work? How do I get external validation for my work? Any suggestions? So yeah, so you're watching this on LinkedIn, right? From what I can see. So yeah, what I suggest you do, you go to my YouTube channel, you find a playlist that's called tutorial. This is a foundational tutorial on the topic of the visa, where I explain how you can meet all of the criteria. I give concrete ideas for all the documents that you can use. And you can use those ideas to basically learn how you can prove leadership. And I think I have a video that's called How Do You Prove Leadership or something like this. But basically just watch the whole tutorial. I think it will really, really help you. And the same was for people who asked, like, how do I prepare? What do I start with? This is like the YouTube channel has all of the information. Also, I think the benefit there is that if you go to the live section and you search for your specialty, so if you're a product manager, an engineer, marketer, you can just type in the title that you have and like a generic title. And you will probably find somebody with your profile who got endorsed, and I interviewed them, right? You can watch this interview. They're usually like an hour, an hour and a half. And those people will tell you which exact documents they used to get endorsed. And I think this will be a good preparation as well. You should treat them with some caution because they might be out of date, but I think the general ideas, they still hold, and I'm sure that they will be useful for you. Okay, let me see what else is there. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of specific questions specific to somebody's profile, right? And as I said in the beginning, I try to refrain from giving advice like this on the live stream specific to somebody's application, because as I said, it's very easy to give wrong advice without knowing all the context, right? We gotta talk with you, look at your profile, look at exactly what the company does. Whether this is like, what is your specialty, what you do there, what your company does, whether your company makes most of its money from selling a digital product. This is, I think, the definition of the product-led company, which I think are the safest ones to use. So yeah, I'll ask some questions about freelancing. Again, like if you scroll back to the beginning of this live stream, you will see me talking on the first slide, I think, about outsourcing and product companies. So, which is where you got to be careful. And I shared more thoughts on that. Okay, so this question again is quite specific, but so you volunteered on numerous occasions, technical support engineer in tech ecosystem with video evidences and an optimized LinkedIn profile, but a Google search of my name may not bring many web pages. What are my chances? So again, I can't assess your chances on the live stream, right? We got to look at your whole application to be able to assess your chances. There are some free online questionnaires that help you, assess your chances. But I often hear that people who got told that they have no chances got the visa. So you should be careful with somebody saying that you have no chances without them talking with you for at least an hour and also reviewing your application, your whole CV, and just really taking a deep dive into what you do. So here, like you don't really provide enough evidences for me to answer this, right? So I'm not sure what video evidences are, like what optimized LinkedIn profile, like how, what it means and like how useful this is. But you have to show that you're a thought leader, right? So how does your optimized profile show that you're a leader in tech? So some people actually use their LinkedIn profiles if they have a lot of followers in a specific niche. They use it as proof of leadership. not as the only way, not as the only proof of leadership. It's just like one of the many things that they mentioned. So like I've had a client who had a big blog on LinkedIn in a technical topic. Like they were writing about technical stuff, and a lot of people followed them. A lot of people retweeted their, like reposted their blog posts and shared them, and they were like an opinion leader in this niche, right? So question to you, Emeka, is what is your niche? What is your content that you're producing? What is your leadership in? Why do people follow you? Why do they ask you questions? Like, why do they care about your opinion? If you can answer this question in some shape or form, then potentially it can be one of the evidences used for the mandatory criteria. But we have to look at your profile holistically and look what else you have, right? So certainly it can be like something like one of the things that you use, but whether it's enough, I think it depends on a lot of other factors. So as I said, again, you can reach out to me and I'll be happy to do a proper deep dive into your chances and your potential for this visa. Okay, so I think these were all the questions for mandatory, right? Strange question about money. Not sure what you mean. Oh, it was for the salary. Yeah, so again, this is a kind of question where outside of the context, it's impossible to answer because, the salary is specific to your field, your seniority, your specialty, right? You need to show it's not it's a number that is relative to the field, right, and to others. It's not an objective number. It's not like with some other visas you have to make a certain amount of money to be eligible, right? It's not this kind of visa. It's relative. So you have to show that you are exceptionally well paid for this field, for this country. So hope this makes sense. Okay, any other questions? Keep them coming. But yeah, as I said, if something is super specific to your particular case, I will just be able to give a generic advice. I won't be able to say, yes, you can get the visa, or you won't be able to get this visa. Okay, I think that this one, so Michelle, I think you've asked this question before. Sorry, I missed it. What if tech qualifications achieved 3 months before applying? So I'm not sure what you mean. So if you could clarify what you mean here, I will be happy to answer it next. What would be your advice for applying as a potential digital talent? So you probably mean applying for promise rather than talent, right? This is a very generic question. Like, could you clarify advice for what, right? So my advice is, I don't know, apply. But you got to clarify this if you want me to answer something more concrete than generic motivation. Okay, let's move on. But, please clarify the questions. I will be happy to answer them. 1 second. I want to share my tutorial link so that you can, people on LinkedIn, so that you can check it out. If I send it here, will it appear on LinkedIn? No. Okay. Just a second then. Okay, so people on LinkedIn, I'm sending you a link to my tutorial. Please bookmark it. Yeah, it should be there. So yeah, this is the link that you need for people who are just starting your preparation. Check it out, watch it, and ask questions in the comments. I try to answer all of them. And hopefully this will be helpful to you on this journey. Okay. Okay, so there was another question. Okay, so Michelle, you've clarified. Okay, so you have taken a cybersecurity course a month before applying. So again, your courses, they don't really matter that much for technician visa. So you have to show specific achievements. You have to show leadership. You have to show that you're able to meet the requirements. You have to meet the criteria, right? I think as I said, I do recommend you to watch the tutorial, to read the technician guide, to get the foundations ready, but the courses, they generally don't do anything for this visa. What kind of tech qualification would you recommend for a software engineer? Moses, thank you for this question. I'm sorry, I don't really understand what you mean. If you can clarify what you mean by tech qualification, then I'll be happy to help. I've actually helped a lot of engineers to get endorsed, so I probably know the answer to this question, but I just don't understand the question right now. Okay, so does changing your profile have any negative effect on your chances? Say you applied previously and got rejected, and now you want to reapply with another set of documents. So that's a great question. I don't really understand what you mean by changing your profile and how it can have negative effects on your chances. But basically, it's totally fine to reapply. You should treat each application as a fresh one, right? You should not be making references to the previous one, or apologizing for making a mistake or whatever. You should put your best foot forward. You should update your documents. You should get new documents. It obviously doesn't make sense to apply with the same documents, right? You will most likely get rejected again. So most people who reapply, they change their documents. They take in the feedback that they received, and they apply again. So hopefully this answers your question, but please clarify what you mean by changing your profile. I first thought that maybe the question is about changing your industry or something like this, but you probably mean something else. So yeah, just let me know. Okay. Extra certifications. Not sure what this is. Okay. So I'm already a leader and have won several awards in my niche, sustainability. I have acquired a few technical certifications and plan to scale sustainability into the digital domain. So can I apply as a potential digital talent? So here, again, it's not really clear to me what your specialty, what your background is. Even if you're applying for potential talent, right, for promise route, you have to show your experience and achievements in digital technology. So if you don't have anything at all in digital technology, then you can't really apply for the visa. You should already have something there. Yeah, I think this answered it. The expectations for promise are lower, but they're still quite high. You still have to meet the criteria, right? You still have to have a lot of those documents, a lot of letters. So if you haven't worked in tech ever, then I don't see how you'll be able to get this visa, even for promise. Okay, so again, this question can't be answered. So I'll try to give some generic, like a generic, or maybe something that would be useful for everybody. So how do I see the chances of an experienced sales manager or people leader working in digital health tech space? So again, it's impossible to assess somebody's chances without looking at the profile, without looking at the criteria, right? So this visa is about you meeting the criteria. If you can meet the criteria, you get the visa. If you can't meet the criteria, you can't get it. That's as simple as that. So here, for instance, what are the chances, right? If you meet the criteria, if you have enough of the evidences for each criteria, right, you have to submit at least 2 unique evidences per criteria. If you have them, they're well presented, they're legit, and they're great, then you will get the visa. So your chances will be 100%. Like, what I can gather from this is that you're experienced, so it means that you will be applying for talent, not for promise. It means that you have to meet the expectations for talent, which are higher than for promise. If you work in tech, then if you work in product companies, then you would potentially be eligible, provided that you meet the criteria, right? So again, I shared the link to the webinar or the tutorial before, so you can check it out, right? Okay. So this question, like big businesses, telecom, mining, automobile companies who make digital products to be used internally, but they're not sold externally for profit. So these companies are not considered product-led by the definition of technician, right? A lot of people who apply with experience, in companies that are not product-led, they get rejected for exact this reason. So you should make sure that the company where you work, makes most of its money from digital products, from selling them. And you have to make it clear to the assessor that this is the case. Otherwise, if it's not clear, then it's quite easy for you to get rejected just based on that. Okay, lots of questions. Thank you. Keep them coming. Okay, so let's talk about mentorship. Okay, so mentorship. So it's a weird one, right? So on the one hand, a lot of people think that like you can meet mentorship very easily. You just have to get onto ADP list or get mentor or whatever, mentor a few people, and then you just get the visa. Or you need to go to HackerNoon or Hubber and post a couple of articles there, and you get the visa or something like this. Or have some GitHub project and get some likes or stars on that. It's not how it looks, right? So with second criteria, which is the criteria about your contributions to the community, right? So it's what you do outside of work. So the way to think about this criteria is you have your job, your 9 to 5, and then you have everything else. So what you do outside of 9 to 5, what you do for free, what you do just because you want to do this, you want to help people, you want to advance the community. This is OC2, right? Optional criteria 2. So mentorship is the one that people use a lot, and then a lot of people get rejected. And this is the thing that technician mentions quite a lot, actually, unfortunately. So they have very specific expectations for mentorship. The expectations are in the guide, but still, I think a lot of people ignore them and then get rejected and get very upset that this mentorship wasn't accepted. Why this happens? I think it's hard to say, but I think a lot of people got endorsed with mentorship experience that's not really eligible. So if you get the visa, if you get endorsed, you are not told like which documents worked and which didn't. So you submit 15 documents, you get endorsed, and then you just get a letter, saying that you received the endorsement. That's it. So you might have something there that just isn't applicable or isn't eligible, and they ignored it. But you still had enough other evidences, or holistically your application made sense and you got the visa. This doesn't mean that everything that you sent there worked, right? So for instance, you had a lot of 9 grade documents, and then you sent in one that's just either outdated or inappropriate or really badly presented, and you got the visa. It doesn't mean that all 10 worked. It just means that enough of them worked for you to get the visa. So this is where the mentorship part comes in, right? So technician wants the mentorship to be within a structured program with selection criteria for mentors, with a curriculum. And those things are important. If you can just register on the platform and do whatever, it's not the kind of mentorship experience that they are looking for. If the mentorship program is kind of ad hoc and you're just mentoring people, I don't know, on Zoom randomly every other day or week, and it's untracked and unstructured, it's not what they're looking for. Having said that, I know a lot of people who have used experience like this, and it worked for them, but it doesn't mean that it will work for you, right? So if people come to me who have a year to prepare, 2 years, and they're asking me, okay, so what kind of volunteering can I take up? I usually recommend that if they want to volunteer, that they choose a volunteering effort that fits the criteria, right? It's kind of strange if you have not done volunteering to pick kind of volunteering that will likely be rejected if you're doing it kind of to boost your profile, right? So following the guide, I think, makes sense. The guide is very ambiguous in a lot of places, but this place, it's very, very exact. And still a lot of people ignore this and kind of hope for the best. Again, you might get endorsed, you might get rejected, but having mentorship that is not really what technician expects, it's just, it won't help you. So if you're choosing like where to mentor, if you're still in this process of like thinking about it or for the future, you can choose volunteering within a structured program. The idea is that you do this consistently. You do this for a period of time, like a year, I think is a proper period to do this, because if you read the guide, you would see that a lot of the documents that you submit, they should be, from people who know you for at least 12 months. You have to show that you have spent a lot of time of your own devoted to this, that you have really invested time into this, that you are very serious about the mentorship, and that you have results, right? They want to see how the things that you do outside of work, how they advance the community, the digital economy. So what is the impact that you are having with your work, with your volunteering? Those things, I think, are complicated to internalize. For instance, if you have a lot of mentorship experience, but if you spend a lot of time doing this, but it's not really what they expect, I would say that if you have space, you should use all of your mentorship experience, all of your volunteering, like all the stuff that you have done over the years. You should use it in your application. But just be aware, if otherwise your evidences for second criteria are very weak, then the fact that you mentored on some online platform, somewhere like randomly, it will likely not be something that will like make or break your application. And the same goes for mentorship experiences within your company. So a lot of big companies, they have mentorship programs and people volunteer to be mentors. They're not applicable. They're within your company. So it's not something that you do outside of work, right? So just be aware that this is not something that will help you. Okay, so questions. So this one, a specific question to your application. Again, I'll be happy to talk about it one-on-one. It's not enough information to give any sort of holistic answer. And yeah, anybody who answers your question based just on that, they perhaps don't know what they're talking about. Okay, so this one I think is good. So can you submit multiple evidences per document submitted? Say you have mentorship experience with 2 nonprofits or 2 innovative products. Can you submit evidence about both projects as one 3-page document? So it depends. I think here, like if you have space, then you would have everything separate. So for instance, especially like for innovation, I would say that separate them, because innovation is very complicated as it is. So you want to be as clear as possible about those things. So you should have like one document about innovation A, second document about innovation B, and third document about innovation C, like 3 different projects, all separate, separate reference letters for them, publications, links, all the good stuff. Ideally, like from different companies, so that there is like a nice diversity of documents. When it comes to mentorship, I've seen different things. Like if, sometimes people run out of space and they have to like squeeze stuff in. And then they will have just one document that is called mentorship. And it will include information about all of their NGOs where they mentored. And then like maybe one page will be about mentorship A, then second page about, letter about this mentorship, and third page will be about, another mentorship experience. So people do this quite a lot. And I've never seen anybody get, in a rejection letter, like I've never seen anybody, technician saying that, you got rejected because you had 2 documents a document talking about 2 things. So this never happens. So it depends. Yeah, like it's always in a lot of things like software engineering, it depends. Okay, so this question, again, I won't be able to answer your specific question, but so if you're experienced industry leader with CTO and senior iOS engineer roles, I think this is like a good, nice foundation, right, for an application, because you have leadership positions. You are speaking at conferences. So conferences are actually really good for boosting your profile when it comes to mandatory. So this is like number one thing that I advise to people who come to me for consultations. If they ask me, Nadia, what do I do to increase my chances? What do I focus on? Obviously your time is limited. You can't do everything, right? You can't like mentor, volunteer, give interviews, publish books, publish articles, like do a YouTube channel, and then, I don't know, do open source and get an award at the same time, right? So this is obviously impossible. So you have to choose what is your focus. And usually if people like are very pressed for time, I usually tell them, go speak at a conference, right? So if you have experience being a keynote speaker at a large industry leading conference where at least 100 people were in the audience, this is just a really good evidence for technician. It is now. I'm sure it will be. It will be in the future, you know. So this is actually a great experience. So if you want to talk about this further, we'll be happy to talk about it in the one-on-one call. Like, it's not a requirement to have awards or to have open source. It's everything together, right? So if you have conference talks and then you have very good letters, maybe have something else, some publications about you. You don't have to have everything, you know. Very rarely somebody has like all of those things. Although like I've had clients who had both, like they had conferences and open source and awards and being a judge, like all in the same package, which obviously was great. And for us, it was like no brainer, you know, you will get endorsed. But I think it depends on the situation, obviously. But I think like conferences, just takeaway for everybody watching this, if you can talk at a conference, I do encourage you to do this. It's really good. It will help you for this visa, but for other talent visas as well. Even if the rules change, I'm 99% sure that conferences will still be very, very respected. So yeah, recency of documents. So I would say that I would stick for 12 months for all of the documents, at least for as many as you can, right? So mentoring like for just 3 months would likely be considered too recent, depending on like what else you present, right? If like your whole second criteria depends on this, you probably hear sound, sorry. So if your whole experience and your whole criteria is just this mentoring, which is 3 months, it will likely be too weak. If you have really nice evidences about doing something else for a long time, then it will be better. On my YouTube channel, I have interviews with a lot of people who chose second criteria. And I gotta be honest, I would say that most of them, they have been doing this stuff for free for a long time. So I have interviewed a couple of YouTubers who have been doing YouTube for a few years, then people who have done community work, people who have built communities. And those are people who have been doing it for a long time, so long before they ever learned about the visa. So that's just the reality of it. Nobody will tell you exactly what will happen if you apply with a very recent document, right? But if you get rejected, then they will for sure mention this in the rejection, because the evidences and the letters, they should come from people who know you for at least 12 months, right? This is like a clear-cut thing, and the clear way to increase your chances, right? So yeah, hope this helps. So this is an interesting one. So there are criteria for selecting mentors. They don't specify it. And I've never seen anybody getting rejected for the selection criteria not being something. In my experience, people just say, they just explain like what the selection criteria was, like what is the process, or they just briefly, in a lot of cases, it's just enough to just say that there was a process for choosing the expert, right? That there was a careful selection procedure, or like how are the mentors chosen, and that's enough. Usually, in the cases that I've seen, that I've worked with, at least for now, like I've never seen anybody get rejected because their selection criteria weren't strict enough. So that's what it looks like right now. Hope this helps. So for paid teaching, Normally, no, because for the second criteria, you got to show that you're volunteering. So this is what I see in a lot of rejections, actually, where they say that the teaching on the mentorship that you use was paid, and then you can't really use it for evidence of volunteering. Okay, so this one is related to the ones that I talked about. So for consistency, this is, I think we discussed it. Your questions actually help me. So really good questions, keep them coming. I really love the general questions. I think the types of questions where like assess my chances, and I will just give you one data point about myself. Those are not really the ones that I can answer. So general questions, please. Yeah, keep them coming. Like think of whether your question will be useful for you or for others who are here. Like we have a lot of people watching this, so I wonder actually how many people are still on. Let me know in the comments who's still watching, who's still live. Okay, yeah, quite a lot of people are still live. That's amazing. Are you tired? Let me know. I am. Yeah, it's hard to chat so much. So yeah, what was I talking about? Yeah, so is your question useful just for you right now? Or will it be useful for others watching this or for others watching the recording? And if it's useful for others, then it's a great question to ask, and I will answer it in detail. If the question is just for you and I won't be able to answer it, and also there are consultations for questions like this. Okay, so consistency is about you showing that you have done this thing, this mentoring, this volunteering for a long enough period of time, right? So that it's not just something that you do last moment, you just apply for the visa. It's something that you do consistently because you care for the community, you care for the industry, and you do this on a long enough time scale. I think we've discussed this pretty extensively. So yeah, if this is not clear, just let me know. Okay, so what's next? Okay. Links, yeah. So links are, that's a big one. So in your endorsement application, you will likely use a lot of links, and you should use links. So for instance, if you are saying that you won an award, you should not just say it, you should provide a link that is clickable and verifiable. So the information should be verifiable. An assessor should be able to confirm that what you're saying is true independently. So what it means is that you should have a link. However, you should not just have a link. You should also have a screenshot that shows what the link will show them. Technician is under no obligation to click all of the links that you submit to them. So if you just send them links, you have this risk of them not opening some of them and ignoring your evidences. And this happens to a lot of people. People just send over like 10 links in some document, and then technician doesn't open the links, or the links, they tend to go dead, right? They tend to become stale. So they can open a link, but then it's like there's nothing there. The website is gone. The blog is dead. Something happened. I know somebody who was actually tracking whether technician was opening links, and they was just one person. They said to me that no, the links weren't open. So some people also try to be very clever and there's this limit, right? 3 pages. The limit is there to be respected. But sometimes people have their 3 pages and then they say, and here is the rest of my achievements. And then there is a link to some Google Drive where there is 100 more screenshots or documents or letters or whatever. Please don't do this. I think it's kind of annoying that you don't respect the rules and you don't follow the guide. But also they will likely not open it. And if you are relying on this information that is on a Google Drive, then you are making your application much weaker. Because why would you do this, right? Everything that you want them to see should be in the application as a screenshot and then a link below or to the right, whatever, so that they can take a look at the screenshot, they can see you with an award, or they can see your publication or your conference talk, and then a link to a video, for instance, where they can verify it, or a publication or something external. Yeah, hope this makes sense. Any questions? Again, I'm open to them. Okay, so this one is a question like, who are the best people? I think I have maybe 10 videos on my YouTube channel about who are the best people. It really, really depends. It depends on your field, on your specialty, where you work, whether you're applying for promise or talent, like what you do, and all of the stuff. It's really, really hard to say something definitive here. So again, this is on LinkedIn, right? So I will link to another. Sorry, very hard to talk and look at the same time. Okay, so I have another playlist. I'll drop it in the comments. Okay, it's there. So it's another playlist where you can find highlights from my interviews, where a lot of people shared information on which kind of people are the best ones to get to give you letters of recommendation. So you can see them. This will be, I think, the fastest way for you to get inspired. But basically, the way to think about it is to find people who would be able to get the global talent visa themselves in your network, right? So they should be leaders. They should be somebody who has some sort of following, who has some sort of brand name or like personal brand, who has an impressive career in tech, in digital technology. But also they should be somebody who knows your work in detail for at least 12 months, right? So it's quite difficult to choose those people. And within my strategy session, which is usually 3 hours, we sometimes spend like an hour choosing the experts. I remember with some of my premium coaching clients, we spent in total, I think, multiple hours choosing the experts. It's quite important, like who the person is who writes the letter. Just received somebody clapping hands on LinkedIn. That's nice. Yeah, so you can send emojis to show support. Also, by the way, on YouTube, since I got monetized, you can press the heart symbol underneath this live stream, and then you can also support the channel with a donation, which I think is quite nice and handy. People who know your work, who are experts, who are leaders in technology, ideally people who have some sort of name recognition. So if you Google their name, you will see something about them. People who give public talks, who contribute to open source, who maybe have some books published, people who have some sort of impact in the industry. Those are the best people you can get letters from. They don't have to be CEOs of the company. It's a myth. I've seen various combinations of people writing letters. And I think you have to kind of aim as high as you can with those people. But if you can't get the letters, from top level executives at your company, it's not the end of the world. You can get somebody who's lower in their career ladder, but make sure that they have this career behind them, that they have some sort of credentials. Basically, this is actually a good question, because sometimes technicians reject because they don't like the experts, right? So they sometimes say, hey, your expert is not really that great. And people get very offended. It's like, oh my God, it's such a great guy. And how do they say this? But honestly, you have to find somebody who is really impressive, right? It can't just be your boss from your previous job or something like this at some consultancy, right? It has to be an expert. I will talk about bosses and letters from bosses. I think it will be one of my later slides. Yeah. Okay, so Hillary, live and not tired. Amazing, yeah. Very cool. Okay, next one. 3 pages. I think I discussed it. Just don't go over 3 pages, seriously. I don't think it's hard, right? But then if you know that this limit is real, you just stick to it. I know that it's challenging to talk about some projects within 3 pages. A lot of my clients tell me, Nadia, it's such a complicated project. It's a very advanced technical topic. There is no way for me to just talk about it so briefly. I hear it all the time, But in reality, once we work through this with my clients, they are always able to squeeze everything in 3 pages, right? Every single person that I coach, we don't go with the limit. So everything is within 3 pages. You can do it as well. I believe in you. The only exceptions are, documents where you provide translations, so they are outside the limit. And then also, if you have letter of recommendation, the big ones, the CVs and the credentials, that are outside this limit. So here, I think a lot of people, they don't really understand this problem, because they're like, is it really a problem if my like my letters are very short, like it's 1 page? I would advise you against having letters that are too short. Like 3 pages for big letter of recommendation, the 3 big ones is quite reasonable. So you can use those ones, right? And you can use the 3-page limit as your guide to like how long the document should be. I think it gives you a lot of space to explain everything you've got to explain. Okay, so this one is also quite popular, I would say. Inconsistencies. This is where there are big differences between, or subtle differences between your CV, your LinkedIn, your letters, and like the whole story that you're telling to the assessor, where they just see that something kind of doesn't make sense, right? And it can raise suspicious of the whole application if there are different dates within your CV or your LinkedIn. If you get a letter from somebody and they say that we worked together in 2020, and then you say that you worked together, like you worked at that company in 2019 or something like this. I've seen those things mentioned in their rejections. I think those things are quite easy to avoid. This is an easy mistake to avoid, but you should always double check everything: your CV, your LinkedIn, your personal statement. Then once you get letters from your expert, you should make sure that everything there makes sense as well, because people can confuse numbers or dates, and then it can cost your application basically. So make sure that everything makes sense, because if it doesn't, then the assessor might get suspicious. They might just treat the whole application with just suspecting that something is off with it, and you really don't want to do that. So this one comes close to the question that we have from Esther, somewhat connected, right? Like, who are the people who get your letters? I think here it's very important to it's important to choose the right people, but also it's important to avoid the wrong people. So the wrong people would be, in this case, your direct colleagues, your managers, your direct managers, right? And also people who know you for fewer than 12 months. Remember those things that are very important, and people get mentioned this in their rejection letters super often, right? You should avoid getting letters from your friends or from your direct managers. There should be some separation between you and the person writing this. And then people who don't know you. In the letter, you have to explain how they know you and your work for at least 12 months. So here it says who know you fewer than 12 months, but really it should be your work. And you should make it clear, like, where you met, how you work together, how they know the stuff that they're writing about. I just remember another rejection that I recently read. It was something like, so basically it was on the forum, so I don't know the details, but it was along the lines of the letter talking about something that the expert shouldn't have access to. So if you can imagine it, it would be something like you work at Facebook, for instance, and then, or, let's say you work at Apple, and then you get a letter from somebody from Facebook and they talk about your work at Apple. This just sounds weird. And I've seen things like that in the rejections as well, where it's like, how would this person know about this? And just be consistent and make sure that the whole story makes sense. I think that's the biggest takeaway from this. So basic publications. That's, I think, the funniest one that I've seen. It kind of started at some point, and then it became quite popular in terms of rejection. So what happens is that a lot of people try to boost their profiles by publishing a lot of articles on various unmoderated platforms, or sometimes moderated, right? And since they have to do it very quickly, they sometimes produce a lot of articles that can be described as basic. Obviously, basic is not an objective term. Sometimes it's used in a way that's not really fair. For instance, somebody has a technical article that is quite complex, but maybe it says that, this is an article about building a basic app or something like this, right? So to a technician assessor, it might seem that this is a basic article, or the article itself might not be about a technical topic. It might be about something, some soft skills topic, and you're an engineer. And they might say that your article is too basic for the visa. So they will likely mention this in their rejection. And I see this more and more. And I don't have my definitive feel on this rejection, where it's going to. And I don't work for Technician. I'm not affiliated with Technician. I'm an independent consultant. So this is just my kind of gut feeling and me looking at a lot of cases. But I do feel like this is more a move towards expecting more complicated and more advanced publications from people who are applying for this visa. That's just my feeling. That's what I think will be happening. So not technical, obviously, if you're a technical candidate, but the publications that you're submitting, they should show that you are an expert in your field, right? So if you are a machine learning engineer, then your publication should be about machine learning and showing why you are an expert in this, right? If you are a product manager, then your articles should be about expert knowledge about product management. So it may be an article about the product management framework that you developed or you used, or whatever. And the same applies for everything else. If you're a sales manager, then the articles should be showing that you're an expert in sales. They just, it's not ideal if they're just about your life, I don't know, how you got into tech, right? I think those kind of articles, they worked much better in the past. And now I would just encourage you to have some serious articles under your belt. Also articles that have had some people read it, like significant leadership. This would really help. Just imagine how many people applied, especially this year with the Technician announcing that they were closing down in March. A lot of people panicked. They applied. A lot of people applied with really poorly prepared documents. And since then, I've seen the standards have risen, the expectations have risen. So you should be aware of it. You should understand the context. That things are getting harder and the expectations are harder. Things that worked a year ago, they don't work anymore. Just remember this. It's not meant to discourage you from applying or anything like this, but it's just for you to be realistic. Also, I know I just mentioned Technician closing down. So the visa route is still open. Technician did shut down, but they're processing applications as normal. So the route is open. The rules are the same. If you go to Technician Visa Guide, you will see the guide that is currently used to assess your application. So don't believe the news that it's over. It's not over. It's still on. And if you want to get the visa, if you want to move to the UK, and apply. Basically, that's my best advice. Okay, so there was a question about this. So does basic publications also apply to media interviews? So I've never seen this applied to media interviews. It's mostly about publications in the sense that you are sharing your knowledge, and they expect your publications to be on a level of expertise and seriousness appropriate for a global talent, right? In terms of publications about you, like media interviews, there I think the expectations are different. They can be about, less serious topics, but they still have to show you as an expert in some reason, right? So they should still be about your expertise. So it should be about why you are an expert in, say, product management. So the interviewer should ask about product management, not just about your life in whatever country. So yeah, I think there are some expectations there as well, but yeah, haven't really seen this being rejections on basis of media interviews. I don't think I've ever seen this. Yeah. I don't think that, like, maybe somebody has seen this, so maybe you can let me know in the comments. Somebody getting rejected for their media mentions not being good enough. I would say that I've seen rejections based on the fact that the conference talks aren't serious enough. So, for instance, there weren't enough people in the audience. The conference wasn't proper. It was just maybe a talk at the university. Wasn't really a conference. This kind of stuff happens. So you gotta go with a proper conference. For media mentions, I think that, can't remember. Interesting question. I will think about it after the stream and think maybe there were some examples, but I think generally with media mentions, the more you have, the better. And if you can get interviewed by like a proper industry journal, then obviously it's better than just being interviewed on some no-name blog. But every little bit helps, I think, with media publications. Okay, so another question of will letters from my previous manager work? So it matters what the relationship was when you work together, right? Obviously, right now they're not your manager, but I generally try to avoid using managers at all and trying to find people who have some sort of separation with you. So, for instance, just at least use skip level manager if you don't have any connections with somebody higher up the chain. Skip level managers, they work fine. Never seen anybody get rejected with a skip manager. Okay, so this one is for the third criteria, which is significant impact. So this is where you have to show that you have done significant impact to the commercial growth of a company, the third criteria. Here, some people get rejected because they don't really show that the impact was attributed to them specifically. So there would be just like a general discussion of something happening, something nice happening, and then they just submit it. But it's not clear how exactly this is connected to them. You have to be very clear how did your specific thing, like your specific part of the job, affected the company. It's not always possible. Like, let's be real. If you build like a tiny part of the API, you can't really attribute like the whole revenue of the company for the year to this, right? But you probably can find some metrics that are very connected to this project. If you are a technical candidate, I recommend talking to a product manager who will be able to help you understand how the project that you have delivered, technical project, was helpful for the company in moving its metrics forward. And this is what they're looking for here. Specifically what you've done and how this thing helped the company grow, right? Be really specific about this. Ask your experts to be super specific about this so that it's not ambiguous, where, like your work and then the impact. But also be realistic. I think it's very important. Sometimes people just write stuff that is a bit out of touch with reality, right? Don't do this. It's better to have smaller numbers that are real and genuine than have like huge crazy numbers that have nothing to do with you. Okay, good question about conferences. So does it make a huge difference for a client? So it's impossible to answer this question. So what is a huge difference, right? I just know that it's a document that is really helpful for leadership, for mandatory criteria, having a conference talk. It will help you. It will increase your chances. It does make a difference. I would say that it's one of the most impactful things that you can do to increase your profile, especially if you're applying for talent. It's quite common for leaders to be talking at conferences, right? When you're applying for the visa, you understand that you are being sort of you're not competing with others because there is no limit on the number of visas, but you're being compared to them, on a subconscious level maybe. And you have to be aware that a lot of people who apply, they have the conferences. And if you don't, you should have other proofs of leadership that are also strong, because otherwise your profile would look very weak, or like just weaker compared to them. And you just have to be aware of this. Okay, so this one I think is interesting. Applying for promise, if you should apply for talent. Some people are confused about talent versus promise, so they do this, I think, because of confusion. But I also think sometimes people just try to be, again, clever and do this to get the visa. So basically, promise is for people who are younger, not younger, earlier in their career, right? So who have spent fewer than 5 years in digital technology in their career. And then talent is for people who have spent more time than that. And the expectations for talent are much higher. So what sometimes people do is they apply for promise, even though they should apply for talent, and they hope that they will get the visa and, without having the necessary achievements. This doesn't work. Technician assessor will check your profile, will check your CV, your LinkedIn. They will investigate like how much time you have spent in the industry. And once they do that, they will probably see that you have spent more time in the industry than 5 years, and they will just evaluate you against the criteria for talent. And this I see on forums all the time. I see people apply for promise when they have spent 10 years in the industry and they don't have any achievements, or they don't have enough achievements. They just started doing stuff. It would be too easy, right? If this worked this way, if you could just apply for an easy route, even though you have spent 20 years in the industry, it's not like this, right? So the promise route is for people who are kind of starting out in tech. They are showing potential, but they haven't achieved those things yet. If you are longer in the industry, you should already have those achievements under your belt, and you should be able to boast them already. All right. If you don't have the achievements and you can't apply for promise, you have to spend time working your achievements, basically, right? Take like a longer view of your career in the future, plan things ahead, see what you want to do, and go do this. That's I think that's the takeaway. You can't really fool the system this way. All right, so we are getting close, I think, to the end of my reasons. So if you wait until the end to ask questions, you can get them in, so I can still answer them. We're coming up on 2 hours. Amazing stuff, and I still see people watching, so yeah, thanks for that. So yeah, using letters. You have to use letters in your application, but you can't just use letters. You have to use other evidences. You have to use external evidences. You have to use screenshots, publications, links to stuff, things outside of your letters. If your application is just letters, it will likely get rejected. That's as easy as that. I know letters are easier to get than other stuff, and sometimes people ask me, like, should I apply with just letters? I mean, you can, obviously. Like, I'm never saying, telling people to not apply if they want to try their luck. You can, if you can get like super strong letters. I still think that the likelihood of you getting endorsed are quite low, but I'm sure that somebody got endorsed with just letters. I would just say that do your best and find something else other than letters. Find some external proofs, find some screenshots, some diagrams, code, commit screenshots, publications, interviews, all of that good stuff. It's very hard. It's almost impossible to meet mandatory criteria without anything other than a letter from your employer or your salary, which we talked about in detail. So yeah, focus on using not only letters, but other evidences as well. Oh, this was actually the last slide. Wow. Amazing. Okay. Let me see if there were any questions. No questions. Okay, I guess people were already tuning off. I don't blame you, it's a long stream. Anyways, so these were some of the reasons for rejections that I observed. These are obviously not the only ones, but I think some of the most common ones. I think if you stay clear of those things, your profile, your application will be much better than a lot of the applications that you would see out there in the wild. So if you want to see how I can help you with the visa, you can go to my website, vitalhope.com/talent, where you can check out my services, my prices, and also, there is information how to get in touch with me. If you want to see me help you, you can also see the reviews and the testimonials from my previous clients. Very happy people about working with me, so you can check them out as well. Also, if you want to get in touch with me, I kind of feel like email is the easiest way to do this. LinkedIn can be a bit odd at this point because I have many followers and friends So if you can't reach out to me, can't message me on LinkedIn, or if I don't get back to you, maybe I didn't get your notification or I got lost with my notification. So email is there. So it's nadia@beetlehub.com. You can email me with any of your questions, and and then we can take it from there. Yeah, thank you, Vivian, for the question. I'm happy that it was helpful to you. And what else? Yeah, and I'm Beetle Hope everywhere on YouTube, on Twitter, and everywhere else. So if you're not following me, please do. I think the biggest thing that you can do if you really like this live stream is to follow me on YouTube, right? So this is my YouTube channel. Go follow me there, subscribe, watch some videos, leave likes, leave comments, ask your questions there. Those things are really important for me to see that there is interest, to see that people are engaging and getting some value from this. Because honestly, there is only a limited number of clients that I can take on, and my goal is to help as many people as possible. And it's always cool for me to see that people are applying for the visa just using my videos without even ever talking to me. But it does help if you leave a comment and say that the video was helpful, maybe you learned something new from it. This is validation for me, and it shows me that people are watching, people are learning from this. So yeah, I will really, really appreciate this. And yeah, this is Q&A, but actually, I think I answered all the questions kind of as we went along. I hope they were helpful. Let me know in the comments. Just leave comments. I know I will wrap up in a minute. And it's so strange to not have anybody with me on this call. Because usually I do interviews, live streams, interviews with people. So there is usually somebody in this room with me, but now I'm all alone, just people on the screen, somebody. Okay, so another comment from Hillary. Thank you very much for the stream. Very comprehensive and insightful. Thank you so much for this. If you're watching on LinkedIn, you can follow me there as well for any future updates and any future live streams if you want to visit them and subscribe. So yeah. Yeah, if you watch this live, let me know in the comments what you learned, what you liked, what you found useful. Feel free to share this live stream, this recording with others who might find it valuable. As I said, comments, likes, and subscribes are really helpful. Okay, thank you, Vivek, for watching. Not that many people stayed until the end, although there is still quite a few watching this. So yeah, I do appreciate your stamina and endurance. And yeah, I will wrap up. It's almost 2 hours, and it was great to spend the evening with you. I wish you all the best with your application for the visa. Just from my own experience, I know how difficult this is. I know how hard the process is. I know that it's very taxing, like both mentally and physically and emotionally, especially if you get rejected. So with this channel, with this live stream, I hope to create this community and this space for you to feel supported, to have the information, and to basically have the things explained that nobody explained to me, and it took me so long to understand them. So now I try to give back to the community and help others on their journey. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much for the evening, and wish you all the best with your visa applications. Let me know how you get on and when you hear back from TechNation. Good luck.